Welcome, one and all, to Men with Funny Heads, the little sci-fi podcast that could. I am Wib, and I am joined by my good friend Longfang. Say hello, Longfang.
Web, what did you make me watch?
I made you watch a movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Disney movie. Why do you got to be weird about it?
Yeah, I'm still amazed it's a Disney movie.
It's okay. We watched The Black Hole, by the way. It is Disney's first PG movie from 1979.
It's their first
yeah.
PG movie. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got the facts on this. I'm going to enjoy this.
I have the deep lore about The Black Hole.
Good.
So, do you want to say anything before we get deep into talking about whatever The Black Hole is?
It features Anthony Perkins and Ernest Borgnine, so it's great immediately.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, just get into it, because holy shit.
Okay, so The Black Hole is a science fiction thing released in 1979. It released on the exact same day as Star Trek the Motion Picture, in fact.
Interesting.
So yeah, that's a choice to make at the cinema. Like
That might have hurt it somewhat.
I don't know which one. I don't know which one is actually the one that you should go watch, because like I quite like Star Trek the Motion Picture, but I know most people don't.
Both of us like it for the reason of like the special effects and the model work and everything's fucking great. As a movie, it's passable.
Yeah. I think The Black Hole's a more interesting movie, but not necessarily a better one.
I would agree with that.
So yeah, that's a choice some people had to make.
Now,
yeah.
before we go any further, just wanted to note this: 1977, Star Wars: A New Hope came out.
Yes.
79, both the motion picture and The Black Hole came out. I know
Yes.
the motion picture was a response to Star Wars in a lot of ways. 'Cause they're like, we had this property and it could do gangbusters, sci-fi's good again. Is The Black Hole in any way a response to Star Wars from Disney?
I mean, I know that like the special effects were there was inspiration taken from that front, but I was actually just about to say the movie was originally conceived as a sci-fi equivalent to like the old disaster movies, like the Poseidon Adventure and Towering Inferno and things like that. It was supposed to be sort of that kind of thing, and there's also a bit of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea about it.
I can totally see that now that you mention it, yeah.
So
That's really interesting. Good job, Wib.
And there is another movie that it's more obviously aping, which we'll get into.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say before we get into the actual thing itself. But yeah, it was made by Walt Disney Studios, and yeah, that's why if you want to watch it, like say if you want to go and watch the movie now, pause this and then go watch it on Disney Plus. It's just up on there, and it's the original version of it. So it has, I think it has one big difference to a lot of the home video releases, which I'll get to in literally seconds.
Good. Okay, please do.
So, The Black Hole opens with 2.5 minutes of music.
With a black screen, just music.
Yeah. Now, you were somewhat confounded by this, weren't you?
Yes.
Would you like to know why it is like that?
Please do, because I thought my the video rendering had fucked up or something when I was watching it, and like I refreshed the page twice.
Now, when I watched it, I was completely okay with this happening, and I didn't have any kind of panic, because I'd had the panic watching the movie that it stole this from. What this is just an overture that obviously comes from theatre originally, but it used to be a thing in like big event movies where there'd just be a few minutes of music beforehand to get you into the right frame of mind. Now, I personally believe that they chose to do it on this movie. It's one of the last movies to actually do it, because a lot of old movies did it. But I believe it is aping 2001: A Space Odyssey here, because 2001: A Space Odyssey does it, and that's the movie that I watched and then was like, why the fuck is there like several minutes of silence on the start of this? Well, of a blank screen. What the fuck is going on here?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's super interesting, actually.
Yeah, it's just an overture, and they left that original version in for the Disney Plus version, which is cool. Like, I'm okay. I think that's a good idea. The music, which is actually the soundtrack's pretty good for it, I think. It's composed by John Barry, who did the James Bond theme.
That's super rad.
Yeah, and yeah, I quite like the music in the movie, so like I'm okay with like having a little overture.
Yeah, I think it's a little limited in that you hear the same bit of the score a couple of times, but it's pretty good.
So you listen to some nice music for a little while, and then the opening credits start on this big computer grid, which I also have a fun fact about. That was the longest computer graphics sequence ever created at the time.
Amazing.
Made by a guy called John Hughes. I imagine it was hellish to get that rendered in 1979, because it's like a grid. Yeah. It's just a big grid that then becomes like a kind of funnel for the black hole.
Yeah.
And it goes down it. Yeah, I imagine it was a whole thing to make. But yeah, it's a cool little effect. Again, it's 1979, so it's...
Yeah, no, that's impressive for the time, especially.
Like, that's around the time when a lot of the times when people had to create computer effects in things, they'd just cheat and make a model and make it look like a computer effect.
Yeah, the one that comes to mind for me when you say that is Escape from New York. I know that's way later, but they just made a wireframe model of the buildings.
Yeah.
And then put the camera along it for the glider sequence at the start, or near the start.
So the movie proper, once we get past random blank screens and primitive CGI, we get to the ship of our sort of crew that we're going to follow. The USS Palomino is undergoing a course correction due to a large black hole that they've discovered.
Yes.
The ship has no artificial gravity, so that's kind of fun. So everyone's floating around, again, because 2001 did it.
I do have a fun note on this, that some actors are more like into the zero gravity acting than others.
You see, I read all the trivia for the movie before we did this, like on things like IMDb. So, like, I'm just sitting here, like, going, like, how much shall I say? Okay, so originally the whole movie was going to be in zero G, but someone at some point came to their senses and went, "We're not doing that."
Good.
It's 1979. We're not doing that. And the reason why, I forget the actress's name who plays Kate.
Yes.
The reason why she has kind of like a short, kind of curly hairstyle is because they knew that long hair would look weird in zero G, because they obviously can't do that properly. So they gave her that haircut so it'd like cover them.
Okay.
So just to go into it, we're sort of shown a little thing of the crew sort of like chatting about their course correction due to this black hole they've encountered. And we see the crew. We have Captain Dan Holland.
I'm glad you got his name.
Lieutenant Charlie Pizer,
yeah.
Pizer, yeah. Dr. Alex Durant, Dr. Kate McRae, Harry Booth, who Alex and Kate are science officers. Harry Booth is, as well as being Ernest Borgnine, is a journalist, apparently. I don't think it says that anywhere in the movie.
I think something's mentioned about it. But I never really picked it up until you said it there. It's weird.
I mean, that's what the internet tells me he is. They could have told me that he's just the resident, like, cook or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it would have been equally as relevant to the plot. So
in his outfit that looks like it's made out of a sofa of the era.
It looks like it's made of Ashen's sofa, yes.
Oh, God, it does.
And we have the hero and protagonist of the story, Vincent. He is a robot that is presumably an attempt to create an amalgam of every droid from Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because he kind of looks like a hovering R2-D2, but he's got like big goofy eyes on him, and he's got a sort of calm British voice.
Yep.
And he likes to quote just poetic and philosophical platitudes all the time.
Yeah.
His name Vincent stands for Vital Information Necessary Centralized. There
They
are
were trying so hard.
there are a handful of robot acronyms in this movie, and they are all bad.
Yes. Vincent?
So yeah.
How do I put this? I like Vincent, but he's also a very... When you think of Disney designs a robot, Vincent's it. There's something about the big eyes, you just go Disney.
Yeah, he's got big cartoon eyes. Apparently those were originally going to be like a kind of light-up LCD kind of... Not LCD, but like what they're called, where it's like a matrix of lights to create a pixel kind of effect.
Okay.
Originally he was going to have something like that, I think, but the effect just didn't work.
It probably wouldn't have worked on camera and stuff like that at the time.
Yeah, it was abandoned, like... I think it was like a last minute, like before filming thing. They removed that, and he got his kind of goofy cartoon eyes, which I think does undermine the character slightly because he is the hero and protagonist of the story. It's really weird. Anyway, that's the crew. Don't worry about remembering who they are because for the most part, it doesn't matter. You could remove a couple of them and the movie wouldn't really change in any significant manner.
You're entirely correct.
Like, did Charlie Pizer really have to be in the movie? Did Harry Booth really have to be in the movie?
Booth had to be.
Okay, if we took Ernest Borgnine and gave him a different role.
No, I'm not saying because it's Ernest Borgnine, I just mean...
But removed the character of Harry because
yeah.
I mean, I guess he does do one thing at the end. But,
yeah, exactly.
But you could. I feel like at least one of this cast needs to go.
Yeah. Oh, should mention, Dr. Durant is played by Anthony Perkins.
He is, yes.
Who is a good actor, and I feel bad for him a lot. Because he got typecast as shit after Psycho.
Yes. I mean, that's the thing. Do an iconic role, and that's going to happen. So, I should probably start talking about what happens in the actual movie, I suppose.
I guess.
Okay, so they all start looking, whilst they're working out like the course corrections, they look at this black hole on their monitors, and characters start making reference to it being hellish. Harry refers to the black hole as looking like something out of Dante's Inferno. Charlie says that every time he sees a black hole, he expects to see a guy with horns and a pitchfork. This is a reoccurring theme in the movie, so don't forget it.
Seriously, don't forget this.
You will be tested at the end.
Yes.
It will not be multiple choice. You do have to remember.
I'm also expecting like 400-word answers for everything that we put on this test. There will be a PDF in the links in the description.
Yes.
No, I'm kidding. Please don't.
Now you make me want to. We're recording this like a week earlier than we need to, so like I've got a week to commit to being a dickhead. So, but anyway, whilst they're scanning the black hole, they pick up a huge ship nearby it. They run through some scans of different ships, and you see a bunch of like outlines of ships from different countries, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's the United Kingdom's Arcturus 10. There's the Sahara module from France and Pluto 4 from Japan, as well as a couple of other ones.
Yep.
So it kind of establishes that like each country still has its own space program in this future. I think it's set in like 2150 or something like that.
2130, I think I heard at the start. But yeah, it's in the 2100s anyway.
Yeah, it's around that sort of time. So it's not... It's not like Star Trek far in the future, but it's it's a way.
They did the right thing in this of setting the year it's in far enough away, rather than say like 1999.
It's funny you should mention Space 1999, because there is a piece. Apparently, there is a piece of a model kit for an Eagle from Space 1999 used on the hull of the Palomino.
Now that you mention it, yeah, like the scaffolding center section of the Eagle, yeah. Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, that's a bit of trivia that I read half an hour ago. So it may be true, maybe not true. I can merely recount the information that I received. But anyway.
Yes.
They are able to identify the ship as the USS Cygnus. Do you know why the name Cygnus is important?
Do tell.
It is because the Cygnus constellation is the first, constellation where we're pretty sure we discovered a black hole.
Oh shit!
It was called something else earlier in production, but yeah, they renamed it the Cygnus after that, which is interesting.
That's a really nice touch.
Yeah, the ship, the Cygnus, was a ship that went missing like 20 years ago, and Kate's father was actually on board it, and so they were like, "Oh, okay." The ship was supposed to come back because its mission, which was to go and find life out in the universe, was considered a failure. So yeah, it was supposed to come back, and didn't. That's also what the Palomino's doing, apparently, even though it seems like quite a small little.
I was about to say, yeah, it's kind of small for that job compared to the Cygnus, which would not look out of place, in Battlefleet Gothic.
I was going to say, yeah, the Cygnus does look like an early Warhammer 40,000 ship.
Yeah.
There's a bit of battle barge about it. It has to be said. Yeah, if you've ever played Battlefleet Gothic, either the video game or the tabletop game, yeah, looks quite similar to some of the stuff from there. Maybe even from like it wouldn't surprise me if maybe some of the like Space Fleet stuff was inspired by it. Which, if you're not familiar, was Space Fleet was a precursor to Battlefleet Gothic.
Yeah.
It came out in like 1991, which was originally called Battlefleet Gothic. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah, let's not. That's for a video for your channel at some point.
That's you see, that's the dangerous part when it slips into what I do normally. Like, oh yes, here's obsessive research about Warhammer 40,000. But anyway, Harry starts to talk about the captain of the Cygnus, a Dr. Hans Reinhardt, who is described as basically being a bit of a dick, but I'm sure that won't come up again.
No, I'm sure.
They debate the merits of sort of checking out the Cygnus because it's so close to the black hole and like it's been missing for 20 years. But then they notice it doesn't seem to be affected by the black hole, so it's sort of like stuck in place. And they're like, that's curious because it should be being sucked in because black holes are known for the suck. That is their primary thing of note. So they decide to go and take a closer look. The ride gets super, super rough. Like everything starts rattling around. We get a full-on Star Trek. Everyone bouncing around. But then they get close to the Cygnus, and everything suddenly gets calm. Like there is an eye of the storm around the Cygnus itself. So they kind of go in and we get a good look at the Cygnus, which, yes, looks kind of like a Space Marine battle barge. The original model was 12 feet long, by the way, so it was a big model.
I had figured it was going to be something like that to get that amount of detail on it. Fun fact for anyone that doesn't know, when it comes to model work on, for me, the one I know is Star Trek, the models for the ships were fucking huge to get the amount of detail required.
Yeah, that one for TNG is like 9 feet long, isn't it? The Enterprise one?
I think so, yeah.
Although they were like, wow, this is a real pain in the arse, so they made a smaller one. Was it only 3 feet, the little one?
I think it was something like that, yeah. And then I don't know about the one they used for Generations, because I think that was a different model. I may be wrong.
It uses both because it uses a lot of footage.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, because both the two versions were used in conjunction. You can always tell which one's which because the smaller model has a thicker saucer because they had made room for where 10 forward's supposed to be. And also you can tell because the paneling on it is more distinct. So you can tell them apart pretty easily if you know what to look for.
I apologise for this tangent, dear listeners.
But yeah, so we get a good look at this, and yeah, the Cygnus it's a weird looking ship. It's really hard to describe it. It kind of looks like it's mostly made of scaffolding off a building site, but with like towering Gothic like cathedral sort of things on the front and back. It's a weird looking thing.
Oh God, it's great.
But they sort of have a look. They scan and they don't really find anything. They're just like, we can't see anything.
I should mention. Durant says that he is activating the microbeam, which is a light.
I mean, I don't know about you, but whenever I get out of bed in the middle of the night and I don't want to disturb anyone, and I grab my phone and I turn on its torch, I do say to myself out loud, activating the microbeam. My wife is very angry with me.
I was about to fucking say.
But anyway, so as we, as the ship sort of like, the Palomino looks around at the Cygnus and they can't really find anything, but they get a little bit too far away from the ship and get back into the like harsh gravity around the black hole, and it starts to really start ripping the ship apart. Everything spins around. You have this kind of fun effect where the camera is spinning, and Vincent, because the little robot, because he hovers, he's spinning as well.
Yeah.
So he's sort of like staying static while the camera's going round, so it makes it look like the whole thing with all the people in it is spinning round, but he's maintaining sort of like thing. It's a fun little thing. It started
to make me feel a bit queasy though with the amount of spinning stuff in this. It's hard to look at.
I don't really get motion sickness very often, but I can totally see how that would happen.
I don't either, but I was looking at this like, oh no.
So you might want to look away from this bit, I guess, if you do suffer from motion sickness, I suppose.
We also get the classic smoke machines everywhere to denote damage on the ship, which is a sci-fi staple that I adore.
But they start there's breaches happen, like oxygen leaks, and just everything starts going wrong. Vincent goes outside of the ship to go and like fix a breach. I think it's like a hatch that's kind of popped open.
Yeah.
So it goes open to kind of close that. Here we also establish, because the communications are down because of distortions from the black hole, that Kate has ESP that she can use to communicate with Vincent. This is a thing in the movie that is both integral yet unimportant.
Yeah.
Because it is used on several occasions, yet could be replaced with a walkie-talkie.
You're not even wrong. Like, it's so...
Like, it's established there is just this thing
where... It's such a throwaway line that, she has ESP and she uses it to communicate with Vincent.
Like, just that it's like some humans have the ability to communicate with robots psychically.
I feel like this was a bit of a staple of sci-fi at the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, once you get... movies and things, like I feel that there's like you know how in Star Wars like canon there's like
you're opening a can of worms, but go on.
There's BBY and ABY before the Battle of Yavin and after the Battle of Yavin. Because it's like a good staple point. So, this is before the original movie, this is after the original movie. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel that, like, in sci-fi in general, there's, like, a before Star Wars and after Star Wars thing.
Yes. However, I wasn't even think that Star Wars would have said that. It's like, sci-fi novels have had a thing for ESP for a long time.
Oh, yeah. But what I was going to say, there's also, like, a bit with Star Trek as well. Like, how sci-fi in pop culture changed quite a bit due to the influence of both Star Trek and Star Wars in its own ways. And I sometimes feel like things like the black hole were like something that sort of popped out and were able to sort of avoid most of the connection to Star Wars or Star Trek and just be very similar to the old like 60s weird-ass sci-fi novels and short stories that are sort of unaffected by them. And so they had their own weird set of tropes that you don't necessarily like recognize today because they're not as common. But yeah, I think there's it's an interesting one because obviously it came out after both those things as well. So but anyway, she uses her ESP, her extrasensory perception, to communicate with a robot who can communicate back with her. This is kind of demonstrated by her looking off awkwardly into the middle distance, and by Vincent's like the center of his like cartoon eyes like flash red.
Yes. Which totally doesn't look evil or anything.
It does a bit. After they do a little mind link, she says, Vincent says there are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are very few old, bold pilots. And they're like, yeah, that does sound like Vincent, so he's okay out there. Unnecessarily cryptic and weird thing he just said. Yeah, no, that's definitely Vincent. So, they get their engines kind of back in gear, so they stop spinning, and they try and head to safety for the area around the Cygnus. Vincent, who's like, even though he's got like magnetic balls on his, he's got these extendable little things. It's weird. he is like latched on by like a rope to the ship, and that snaps, and he kind of he has to grab on with his little grabby arms because he's got little tools in him because he's basically an astromech droid. Just one that hovers. So he grabs on, but then he loses his grip, but then he fires like a magnetic grappling hook thing to get back to the ship.
Did you notice a sound effect when the rope launcher was used?
I didn't know.
There's a little bit of the TOS door noise.
Good.
For listeners, Star Trek: The Original Series, like the door opening noise. I heard it.
Excellent. But yeah, so he gets back to the ship. People do show, like, on board, members of the crew are shown to be quite actually concerned about Vincent. So it does sort of establish that Vincent is not just like, he's not just a tool. They do consider him like a person.
A member of the crew, yeah.
He is a member of the crew, which means it manages to, in that one brief scene, show more concern for droids than the entirety of Star Wars.
Correct.
Because Star Wars is
so fucking weird about droids.
Star Wars' relation to the obvious sentience of droids and how they are treated as property is perpetually bewildering to me.
Yes.
Like, I know novels and expanded universe stuff has like dealt with it a bit more, but like the fact that in mainline sort of like movies and stuff, the only acknowledgement of it really is a single character from a movie that, well, the least well-performing movie, who's treated more like the fact that they want liberation for their objectively subjugated people is treated as more of a joke than anything else.
Yep.
Solo's a weird movie. It's not terrible, but it's not like amazing either. Mm-hmm. It's a movie that exists, you know?
Yes.
But anyway, so they go dock with the Cygnus because they're damaged, like they can't fix it, like just out in space. So they go to dock with the Cygnus, which all suddenly lights up, and it's actually like got a lot of internal lights. And
I really like the internal lighting.
Yeah, it all like glows. It's a really interesting design. It's literally used on like the thumbnail for it on Disney Plus. They were like, yes. That's the good image to use. Kate says that she can feel people on board, showing that having characters have vague, useless ideas about what people on other ships are feeling is not an invention of the next generation.
Oh god, yeah.
But they dock and they suddenly acquire the gravity that the Cygnus has. Mm-hmm. It's got like artificial gravity. Vincent comes back inside because he like gets inside the tube that latches to them.
Yep.
And they're all like, "Oh hey, Vincent, you're here, cool." They make Charlie stay with the ship for I guess he like smells. I don't know.
Couple of notes here. First of all, when they docked, I have a note in all caps that says, "Is this about to become Event Horizon?" That's just wishful thinking on my part. Although, and when the airlock opens into the Cygnus, there's a Star Wars door sound effect.
Yes, that was one of the things that's in
also another note I have here is Pizer, stop posing with that gun. You look like a tit.
Yeah, he does kind of do a few poses with a gun. I think it's mostly to establish that he has a gun. Yes. Because there's a line later on that references it, and if you write a line into your script, you have to like do something to establish there's a reason for it. You can't just remove the line. I'm joking. Mostly joking. So the rest of the crew, like, they want to know what's going on because obviously the Cygnus is like, it's all lit up, like they thought it was abandoned, like, so they go a bit deeper into the ship. Doors are kind of opening and closing behind them, so they're obviously being led. They get targeted by some like defense lasers that shoot out like the weapons that I think Captain Dan's holding a weapon.
He's the only one that has a gun.
Yeah, he's got a gun and that gets shot out his hand. And they also shoot Vincent, which I don't think it directly says it, but I think the implication is it disables his guns because as well as being R2-D2, he's also a murder machine. He has like double lasers.
He's the what's it called?
Hero and protagonist of the story.
Yes, but also the Blastomech droid from the Doctor Aphra series.
Ah, okay. I have not read the Doctor Aphra series.
Which is an astromech with a lot of guns.
You see, now I'm just thinking of Chopper from Rebels, who at one point is like flying around wielding double blaster rifles from his little mechanical arms on his like janky ass little rocket, because he's got like a butt rocket, like so he can fly like R2-D2.
No, I can't remember the Blastomech's actual name and number, so I'm just saying Blastomech every time. Yeah. It has like rocket pods that come out of its body.
Excellent.
It's great. Read Doctor Aphra, everyone.
Yeah, you've told me it's pretty good. But anyway, so they kind of now disarmed, they are led further and further into the ship. We then see some awkwardly goose-stepping dark red robots head towards the Palomino. They have double guns. They actually have 2 double guns, so they have double guns.
I have a note here of just, look, red stormtroopers. Okay, robots, but yeah.
I have read somewhere that they were played by mimes, but I'm not sure if that's true. It would make sense because they are kind of goose-stepping around in this like really weird, awkward way.
Yeah.
But yeah, the double guns are like, it's like a regular gun, but on the bottom there's also a gun.
Yeah, you've got the grip that your hand's on, and then a barrel on top of your hand and a barrel below your hand as well. Double gun.
And they have 2 of them. Double gun. The crew all get whilst that's happening, the crew get on a sled which leads them deeper into the ship. It kind of looks like a ride at Disney World.
I was going to say that a lot of this little space sled sequence with the not very well aged blue screen looks like it was meant to be for like a ride at Disney.
Yeah.
Which so might have been a plan at some point if this film did well.
Maybe. I should probably go and watch more Defunct Land on Space Mountain.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe it had some relation to that. Mm-hmm. But they head to the command deck, which there's a big reveal. It's like this huge room, but it's full of robots. They've got these like silver face masks,
blinky lights.
A lot of blinky lights, because that's how you know something is science fiction.
Yes.
Blinky lights. We then see a big red robot that's like different to all the other red robots we see. It like hovers. It's just this huge thing. I think to describe it as a puppet is kind of an insult to the level of articulation of a puppet.
Yeah.
It's sort of a big lump of a prop that floats around and has like arms that pop up and do things. It is intimidating. Its head can spin, so I guess it does have that degree of articulation.
Yeah.
It's basically, when the super cheap action figures you can buy from like a pound shop, and they have like how much articulation they'll have. There'll be a knockoff of something. They'll be like, this will...
Yeah.
This will be
spot. Has 3 points of articulation, and 1 on each arm and then 1 for the head?
Yeah, basically.
Oh, plus 2, I suppose, for the little fin things on its waist.
Yeah, except it's not a 3-inch tall action figure that is you bought from a dodgy shop somewhere. This is a prop for a major motion picture.
Yep.
I actually really like the character. I actually really like it. Its name's Maximilian, by the way.
Yeah, I do have a note here of just because it immediately flips up 2 arms and then starts like spinning blades on the ends of them. And I've just got here, is it spinning its blades to assert dominance?
It is spinning its blades to assert dominance. It's like, got little hand blade things that it spins like like he's a blender. Which he does, to like just, and then the crew's like, oh Jesus, this thing's gonna like blend us, I guess. Vincent puts himself between the crew and the robot because he is the hero and protagonist.
Yes.
Despite he's obviously scared of the thing, but like he's gonna do it because he's the hero.
Yes.
But then Hans Reinhardt reveals himself as the one who is running everything. And
he has a mighty beard.
He has a mighty beard. He's he's full on like just crazy space hermit.
Yep.
He's kind of great. Fun fact: Maximilian, his robot, was originally going to be called Maximilian anyway. But when they cast the guy who plays Hans Reinhardt, who is a guy called Maximilian Schell, he's Austrian, so
Yes.
I apologize if I get his pronunciation wrong. But when they actually hired someone whose name was Maximilian, they subtly changed the spelling of Maximilian's official name in the movie. It was originally with 2 L's, but then they changed it to 1 L, like
the actor.
Maximilian Schell.
Oh, okay.
Which is just completely pointless, but a fun little touch.
Cute.
He does say he tells Hans Reinhardt tells the robot tells Maximilian to like back down. He's like, oh, he's a nice little robot. He's harmless, which I'm 99% sure is a lie.
That thing has spinning blades. Come on.
He is obviously a murder machine.
Yeah.
Like he's an awkward floaty murder machine that is with 3 points of articulation, but he's still a murder machine.
I have a note here that says, "Oh God, we're only 30 minutes in."
I mean, we're 40 minutes into the podcast, so
okay, yeah, we're making good time. We're making good time.
It'll go quicker. And it's probably, to be fair, it's probably like 30 minutes in time for the actual listeners. So they don't get to hear us talking about whatever foul, depraved things we do before we actually start recording.
Yes.
But anyway, Reinhardt tells Kate that her father, who was of course on the Cygnus, is dead. It's someone who Reinhardt considered a friend, and the rest of the crew abandoned ship when the ship was damaged and just became stuck here. And so he's surprised that they hadn't got back, that none of the crew had made it back home. I don't think they ever actually specify when they just say home. I don't think they ever actually specify getting back to Earth.
I think they might later on, because I'm pretty sure he says something about Earth people or something weird like that. But yeah, it's never quite stated that they're from Earth, although we know they are because every nation has its own space program, so it would make sense it's all from Earth.
Well, it just made me think, because obviously, anytime you've got like kind of a big space travel thing, because obviously it's like a big deal to them because they're sending out these huge ships. So it's, we don't really find out much about the rest of the world of how this universe works. So it's just kind of, it's one of those things.
I'm sure the supplementary material in the expanded universe will go into that.
You say that.
God damn it.
There was a comic series that was briefly done, I think it was called Beyond the Black Hole, but that followed stuff after the movie. But apparently it didn't last very long, and it got cancelled before it actually was able to finish the storyline. So yeah.
Ooh,
but I haven't looked into that, so I don't know if they ever revealed what was supposed to happen. But whatever. Anyway, where am I? So after everyone had left, Reinhardt says, "Oh, well, he made the robots, as companionship and to run the ship." He's like, he says, "Oh, they may look a bit medieval because they're in these big robes and with these mirrored faces." He's like, "But they look a bit medieval. But I'm a romantic,
Yeah, we can tell. Also, please stop staring at Dr. McCrae like that, or Kate. Sorry.
He does stare at Kate in a bizarre, hungry way.
Yeah, he's got the Gowron eyes for her.
Yeah, and it never really goes anywhere.
Nope.
It's just it just kind of happens for the first third of the movie, and then it just stops happening. It's a bit weird. At this point, Charlie's brought onto the bridge by those red goose-stepping robots from earlier. Reinhardt apologizes, but he says the robots, react to any form of aggression, and that's why they were all disarmed and why he was brought here. And says, "Oh yeah, I've developed these anti-gravity forces, which is what maintains that kind of null zone of gravity around."
Gravity is a term that comes up a lot in this film,
and I don't think anyone knows what it means.
Thank you. I'm so glad you said that.
It's science fiction, whatever.
Yeah. This is not a hard sci-fi film. It's just
no
sci-fi.
Reinhardt says he'll help them repair their ship, and he'll also to the scientists, because both Kate and his name's fallen out of my head now.
Harry.
Fucking Doctor.
Durant.
Durant. It's Alex, isn't it? Alex Durant.
I think
Alex
so.
Durant.
I
Yeah.
just got second names for most of them.
Yeah, the opposite to what I did, so that's good.
And together we are one.
So Kate and Alex, because they're the science officers, he's like, I can reveal to you like things of great scientific importance, as well as helping you repair the ship. And before they leave to go and like start the repairs on the ship, you see Vincent and Maximilian kind of pairing off. Reinhardt compares them to David and Goliath for another kind of reference to biblical kind of aspects. He says, "Oh, only this time David is overmatched." I think Reinhardt doesn't understand the story of David and Goliath.
Yeah. Also, Reinhardt makes mention of like the ends justifying the means, and I'm like, okay, you're nuts. Okay, got it.
Yeah. This is because everyone but Kate, Harry, and Alex sort of go off to repair the ship, and Kate, Harry, and Alex are staying with Reinhardt. And Reinhardt's like, "Oh yeah, I've fully repaired. The damage is fully repaired. We could have just gone back." But this is like a thing of great discovery, and my work wasn't done. Harry compares that to like an act of piracy, and Reinhardt then says, "Oh, would they have called back Columbus?" And it's an interesting comparison because, like, I think people are more educated nowadays about the actual actions of Christopher Columbus, because what that means is that his little argument there was to say, no, me stealing the ship wasn't an act of piracy. I'm much worse. I'm more like the guy that committed genocides.
I mean, yeah. I get what he's saying. It's like, oh yeah, I'm an explorer. Would you have taken Columbus?
Yeah.
But like, mate, you're sitting in a black hole.
Yeah, that's just if anyone who takes these things way too seriously, I'm making a joke.
That was my defensive action there. Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing matte painting with the spinning black hole. You can see on the bridge. Looks great.
Yeah, apparently the when you see the animated version of the black hole, it's like it's like a water like vortex thing, and then they pour paint into it, and that's how they did that.
That's awesome.
Which is really cool. And this is also
brilliant.
It does. It looks great. I really have a soft spot for like old special effects anyway, because I think that like modern special effects, cool. I do not mean in any way to disparage the work and talent that goes into modern computer like special effects. I can't do them. You people are able to create magic from nothing.
You're fucking wizards, is what we're saying.
You are wizards, but I have a real soft spot for seeing people who did not have the capacity, like they were working against the limits of technology to like push boundaries to make these like grand sci-fi things or grand fantasy things a reality when the tech really wasn't there for them to do what they wanted to, but they did it anyway.
It was all special effects crews like almost cheating to get stuff that works, and it's so interesting.
It's like these we can't just brute force this like by just making it in a computer. No, we have to figure out how to physically make something that can do this, because well, you saw at the start of the movie how a wireframe was about as good as computers could manage at that point.
And most places wouldn't even use a legit computer generated wireframe, as we said earlier. Like that says a lot.
It was easier to physically build it than to make in a computer. But anyway, this is also where Reinhardt says, I'm about to prove that the ends justify the means, which is, I think, perhaps the thing that is the biggest red flag. But Hans Reinhardt is a man made of red flags. In fact, he wears like a fancy red kind of uniform later on, which I believe is made from a red flag. So,
Made from several. It's like a two-piece outfit, so,
Yeah. So the team, start doing repairs on the ship, and we encounter another sort of hovering little robot who's got the name Bob written on him. it's like Maximilian like knocks him because he's like busted up. He's like really
There's
wrecked.
like wires hanging out and dented to shit.
Apparently, the original version didn't look like knackered enough. This is one of those stories that I don't know how true it is, but one of the production staff literally took a bat to the clay model that was made for him, and was like, "That's how beat up he needs to look," and so that's what they based his design off.
Might not be true, but it's certainly something you could see happening.
It's a fun story, whether it's true or not. So yeah, he's just an older version, like Vincent's sort of thing. And yeah, so where the hell am I? There's a lot about to happen.
They find Bob, the busted. I had written here busted Vincent friend.
He doesn't say anything right now. He sort of like, he's obviously scared of Maximilian.
Yeah, like he shivers and you hear the metal clanking noise, and they're looking at that's in the spare parts bay area thing.
Yeah.
Cut to the captain on a sled.
Yes. So I'm gonna kind of like, there's a few points in this where I'm gonna like simplify some stuff that happens just for the ease of things, because it like cuts back and forth between things. I'm just gonna.
There's a lot of cuts, yeah.
This is like just a section of the movie where it does a lot of that, of like just going all over the ship to different people and then flicking back and forth, and it would be confusing to explain in order that it actually happens.
That's totally fair.
So Reinhardt, he's talking about like his great work, which he calls Cygnium.
Oh god, yeah, the power generator. Infinite energy, I call the material Cygnium.
That's super important. The Captain Dan stumbles upon like the crew quarters, which is full of the crew's like possessions, and he like notices some robots like doing a funeral. Like it's like a Wrath of Khan style thing where they eject a coffin out into space, which goes into the black hole.
Not long before what makes him stop the sled and go to the crew quarters is he sees like 4 or 5 robots carrying a coffin. It looks like someone in carbonite. Yeah.
It's a weird thing, and then Maximilian like appears behind him, and he's like, "Okay, I'm going."
But they're straight up doing a proper funeral thing where there's people like arrayed at each, or there's robots arrayed at each side of the coffin launcher.
Yeah,
for lack of a better term.
Harry, he has a bit of a sneak around.
Yes.
And he like stumbles upon like a hydroponics bay, and he starts trying to talk to one of the robots, like he's talking directly into his mirrored face.
The mirrored faceplate is so good, by the way.
It's a cool look.
There's something about it. It's literally just a flat kind of dome shape with some holes in the kind of mouth area, and that's it. Yeah. And it's just mirror sheen. It looks really effective.
And like he kind of like, he's like, "Oh, sorry, I guess you can't talk to me." Okay, fair. And he kind of has a look about, and then he turns around and sees that the robot kind of leaves, but the robot's got a limp.
Yes,
which is interesting. Back on the Palomino, Dan's telling Charlie and Vincent about the funeral and like what it could mean. Like, are there actually survivors on board? Because you don't give funerals to like. Just
robots don't have funerals.
Mindless drones. Like,
why are the drones doing this?
Yeah, that's weird. And Charlie's like, well, I mean, Reinhardt has been really willing to help us. But then Vincent chimes in with one of his actually useful statements, which is, "A wolf remains a wolf, even if it has not eaten your sheep."
Yes, that's a... I did have earlier on... Vincent quoted Cicero, and I literally don't fucking quote Cicero, you little prick. Like, because it's just, why are you saying stuff like this? But that one is so good.
Yeah, it's just a weird quirk he has that it's like everyone just sort of deals with.
Yeah.
Reinhardt invites everyone to dinner.
In the bougiest fucking stateroom ever.
Oh, yeah. As they're heading back, they find like a target range where all, a bunch of the like... robots.
They have to put Vincent somewhere, so they put him in like the robot shooting range.
It's robot daycare.
Robot daycare, yeah, it's a crash.
It's a nursery just for robots. Vincent's like, I don't mean to be superior, but I really do not like the company of robots. Vincent, our protagonist and hero, and possibly racist. To his own robot kind as well. It's terrible.
Yeah. It's
but
weird.
But yeah, so they leave him there and they all go off to dinner. So we see Bob again, and since it's established when we first encounter him that his model was made in Houston, he is of course voiced by a guy called Slim Pickens.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah, he's voiced by the guy who was the one riding the bomb in Doctor Strangelove.
Amazing.
He's like a rodeo guy. Like,
okay, yeah, no, that makes perfect sense now. Good.
Yeah, neither him nor I forget who it was that voiced Vincent. Neither of them are credited in the movie, apparently.
That's a shame.
I didn't notice that. I don't know. Just credit people. Unless they don't want to be, I guess. Maybe it was something like that. I don't know.
It might be a thing of like, don't credit me, so it just seems like the robot's alive, because that's a thing that
sometimes
Disney
people
do.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, people are weird.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, you have a bit of talk to him, and yes, he has like kind of a southern drawl to him. He's quite fun. I like Bob.
I like Bob too.
He introduces that there is this the sort of goose-stepping robots. There's a black one who is called Star.
I legit, like, this black robot with the name Star could have just been like an early 90s really shitty cheap action figure.
Yes, it looks like something that you would buy from like a knockoff shop.
Yes.
And like you press a button and it'd make like it'd cycle through gun sounds while an LED in its chest flashed so brightly that it blinded you.
God, yeah, that's exactly it.
It again, to reference him, it would be something that Ashens would be looking at on his sofa. But he's like this Star. I forget what his acronym means, and nor do I care. It's another bad one, I seem to remember.
It's terrible, yeah.
He was the prototype robot from which all the other ones were made, and he was basically replaced when Maximilian was created. He was sort of the head one, so he's like better than other ones. Bob had once beaten him at a game of like the target practice. They're playing like a kind of like target shooting game. And it turns out Star does not like to be beaten, and so he beat the shit out of Bob, seemingly.
After Star blew a fuse, though, like literally.
Yeah, and so yeah, he beat up Bob. And I presume that's maybe why he's in such a rough state. You know.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting the impression of.
We then see a bit of the dinner.
Oh, sorry, I should mention, Star does a flourish when he finishes the shooting range thing. And of course, he can't actually spin his gun, so he just rolls his wrists, and it looks so funny.
Oh, yeah. It's very goofy. But yeah, at dinner, Reinhardt asks, can you please stop wandering off for your own safety, blah, 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 blah. So, they're all going to be ready to, like the repairs are mostly done. Alex is like, I'd like to stay longer. Captain Dan doesn't really seem keen, but like Alex is fully enthralled by Reinhardt. Like he's like making the googly eyes at him.
Yep.
He's like this. He's like a great man. Like yeah, he's eccentric, but he's a great man. All this stuff.
Yeah. I have a note here of just damn it, Anthony Perkins, don't go to the dark side.
Yes,
because it's.
Reinhardt starts to reveal his actual thing, which is that he wants to go into the black hole because he wants to go into whatever lies beyond. He says like people say, "Oh, it's impossible," and he's like, "No, the word impossible is only found in the dictionary of fools." There's a handful of really good lines in this.
Yeah,
that I really
there is.
like.
Usually, actually delivered by Reinhardt or Vincent.
Yes, because they're the two characters in the movie.
Yeah.
I'm being really harsh. I don't mean it. I have
it's
genuine.
None of the actors' faults.
I have a genuine fondness for this movie. Like I just want to be clear.
It's charming.
But yeah, Reinhardt's saying that he's going to take the Cygnus as its whole into the black hole using the anti-gravity stuff he's got and careful calculations to avoid destruction
and some
sort of hopefully, sort of like pop out and see what's on the other side. Mm-hmm. Which there's various allusions to like what it could be, untold like knowledge.
The laws of science do not apply there, and all these things.
Like, there's a definite, like, it's ascending to another realm. It's very interesting, and I'm sure it won't come up again.
Yeah. Actually, Reinhardt at the dinner does mention that the crew of the Palomino are the only Earth people to know of my existence, and I'm like, that's not weird foreshadowing or threatening at all.
Yes. He asks if the Palomino would, like, monitor him going into the black hole, because he's, like, about to do it. Basically, he's waiting, they're waiting for a probe to be returned, to return with information, which does arrive during, like, the dinner, and so he has to leave to go and check out the data. Meanwhile, back in robot daycare, Star challenges Bob again because he's just a dick. Yep. Star kind of nudges him, so cheating, and he wins, but Bob basically says, yeah, I let him win, because basically doesn't want to get the shit kicked out of him again.
Yeah.
Then Vincent's like, fuck this guy, and he challenges Star, even, like, bouncing one of his shots off, like, the thing and hitting Star in the chest.
Yeah, I think Star had a medal on his chest and melted it. I can't really,
Which causes Star to get so mad that he starts smoking and collapses. He literally blows a gasket.
Yes.
So just dies, I guess.
While making a sort of, like, the noise of, like, you know how when someone says internal screaming, there's a certain noise that goes with it? That's kind of the noise that Star makes.
Thus proving that Vincent is a lot of things, as well as hero and protagonist, but, he also is dispatcher of minions.
Yes.
The best shot in the movie.
Yeah. This fucking floating ball.
Yeah, it's like, what if the main characters of the Phantasm series were the floating balls?
Yeah.
Which, oh god, okay. That is a sentence that has a lot of things I could say about it, which I will leave it just there.
Good, leave it up to the audience.
Jesus. But at that point, because it's sort of established that, because Vincent had his weapons knocked out, but he goes to, like, a charging station to be able to get them back for this, but they're not permanently enabled. Bob asks him to, like, come meet him in, like, parts storage, like, this is, like, a secret thing.
Clandestine style.
A clandestine thing, and so Bob actually reveals what his acronym stands for, which is Biosanitation Companion, which I think means he's a floating urinal. And it's also a shit acronym because his name's Bob, and it's
I think Bob is a janitor droid. I'm just going to say that.
I think my take is canon.
Okay.
But Bob says he can, like, properly reactivate Vincent's guns, and says, like, basically, you need to get away from here. Cygnus is a death ship.
Yeah, I've got that noted. Good line.
The rest of the crew at dinner, like, discussing, because Reinhardt had to leave to go check on his probe. They're all like, yeah, this guy is nuts. Apart from Alex, who's like, he's eccentric, but he's a genius. And they're all sort of discussing these, like, disconcerting, like, incongruities between what they're told. Like, why would a robot have a limp? Why would there be the funeral? Yeah. Like, there's stuff he is not telling us.
Yeah, Alex Durant has kind of been like, oh yeah, well, maybe you just saw a robot with a servo malfunction. And no, it's like, mate, stop defending this person you just met. You don't know them. The captain, Bob, or Pizer, I don't remember who, does state that Reinhardt is cuckoo as a Swiss clock, which is a very of-the-time sort of line.
That is a very 1979 line, yes.
Yes.
So, like, Harry suggests that, like, maybe we should, like, take the ship and take Reinhardt home, because there's, like, so much, like, new fancy, like, technology here. This, like, is worth taking and, like, take it away from the black hole. But Captain Dan's just like, no, this does not seem like a good idea. Meanwhile, Bob shows Vincent a room where the robots are kind of being worked on and constructed. And basically reveals that the robots are in fact the crew. They are made from the crew. Like, they, that's just what happened. They just got turned into it by Reinhardt. So, like, oh shit, okay, so that explains a thing or two. They're discovered by some of the Red Goose stepping robots, and there's a little firefight that breaks out. But of course, because Vincent is our protagonist and hero, and Bob is his sidekick. They dispatch them pretty easily because he's got his guns back now. So
yeah, Vincent dispatching them easily is putting it one way. I've got Jesus, Vincent, let those droids the fuck up.
One of them does get like exploded and like literally it pops apart like he's a crash test dummy toy.
Yes.
It's great. Also, if I'm very sorry to people who are younger than I am who are going to ask what a crash test dummy toy is, look it up on the internet. I had the car. It was fucking great. But yeah, so they disposed of the evidence by just putting it behind a console.
Yeah, still smoking, by the way.
Yeah, the debate with the crew kind of continues, like they're still talking about stuff, and then Kate gets an ESP message from Vincent. Again, this could just be a walkie-talkie, saying, "I need to speak to Captain Dan, Jesus Christ." So Alex and Kate remain. Alex sort of saying that, yeah, he's thinking he kind of wants to stay because Reinhardt's journey could be into like the mind of God. And Reinhardt reappears and is like, where is the rest of the crew? I told them not to wander off. But he decides to give his research data, basically everything that he's researched up until this point, he's giving it in this big leather-bound tome to Alex, basically, because he's ready to go and do his black hole nonsense, and so he can then take that back to Earth. Because even though like Alex wants to stay, he's like, no, take this and go off.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I believe, he states like he thinks he's going to like eternal life, like that's what he's gonna go.
And Reinhardt has an ego and probably wants statues made of him back on Earth.
100%. He wants, like, he does say something like earlier on, like I am like I am disinterested now these days in praise or something like that.
Yeah, it's like,
but
no, you're not.
He's absolutely a fucker that would be like, no, you don't have to build a statue of me. Well, okay, if you have to, a little one, or maybe a bit bigger than that. Just I'll tell you, I'll give you some notes on the pose I want to be in. Just so we get the best version. That kind of fucker. Sort of meanwhile, Bob is basically telling Captain Dan, along with Bob, sort of going like, and I think is it Harry's also with him at this point? I think.
I think they are, because it's only Alex and Kate that are with right now.
And he's like, yeah. So the crew tried to mutiny, and like Kate's father was killed then, and the rest of the crew were turned into these robots.
I think it was stated that whatever the crew did, it was just being like, Reinhardt, we are not doing this, and Reinhardt decided it was a mutiny.
Basically, because they were like, because he refused to come back, and they were like, we want to go home. Our mission is over, and
that was it.
And he when he just didn't, and they disagreed with his wrong actions. He turned them all into mindless robots. This is where, because they were initially like, okay, well maybe we should do Harry's plan and take the ship and take it back home to save all these people. And Bob says, in this Disney movie, no, they are beyond help. Death is their only release.
Yup.
Which is a line.
Yup.
At that point, they're like, we should leave. Meanwhile, Alex, he's still with Reinhardt, still clutching his fucking, like, book of stuff. He asks to stay. He wants to stay with Reinhardt. And Vincent is ESPing Kate, basically to tell her everything. And so you see her being like, oh, shit.
You see, like, the realization dawning on her of, oh my fucking god, what have we gotten ourselves into?
She kind of quietly pulls Alex to one side and sort of gives a really quick version of, like, these are people. Like, he's a madman. He is a murderer. But Reinhardt kind of comes up and interrupts them and, like, starts really, like, advancing on Kate, and it sort of leaves Alex alone for a second. So he goes over to one of the robots that's on the side and then takes off one of their masks, revealing just this dead, blank sort of person underneath. Just this.
Yeah, it's a very gaunt, corpse-looking face. Part of me is sad it didn't go full horror there, but okay, it's a Disney movie.
It is a Disney movie at the end of the day, and I think this is about as dark as a Disney movie manages to get without being fucking The Hunchback of Notre Dame and the implications of that goddamn movie.
Yes,
Jesus.
yes.
Wow. That is a dark villain, Disney, you know.
Oh yeah, that's a very dark villain, Jesus Christ.
Anyway, Reinhardt seeing this is like, why did you do that? It was the only way to keep them alive. And then when they start pressing him on what the fuck he means by that, he sort of starts like just being evasive, and he calls for Maximilian. Maximilian decides that what that means is murder Alex in a very bloodless but quite gruesome way.
I'm just going to set the scene of this. At this point, Alex and Kate decide, fuck this, we're running for the lift. The lift, or elevator, whatever you want to call it, closes. So their backs are against a wall. Alex turns around and holds up the book to Maximilian as if to defend himself. Maximilian's spinning fucking blades go through the book and into Alex's gut, disemboweling and killing him, which makes him fall into some piece of technology that starts sparking and burning his corpse.
You see, it's because of the way it's shot, it's not bloodless. No part of it is gory. No part of it is like thing, but it's the implication. I still find it it's still it's not the most gruesome death in the movie.
No.
Because that comes quite near the end.
But, I do have a line of just, holy shit, I just went from 1 to 100 in this movie. Like, it just kind of clicks and everything goes nuts. Yeah,
like Reinhardt chastises Maximilian, and he's like, why did you do that? Alex was a good man. Like, and he kind of goes up to Kate and, like, quietly is like, I need you to protect me from him.
Yeah. Which is interesting.
Yeah, because it's something which it's sort of not really touched upon that much, but there is obviously this, like, really fucked up relationship between him and Maximilian that we get little glimpses of here and there. It doesn't really flesh it out, and I think that makes it a little bit more unsettling, because it makes his evil actions, that it reveals like a bit of him just being a scared man.
Yes.
And Kate just responds to him as like, if there's any justice at all, the black hole will be your grave. And
such a good line.
The goose-stepping robots take her away to be assimilated into a robot.
Yep.
Reinhardt tells the rest of the crew, he goes on the radio because they're all on board the Palomino at this point. Like, oh, the two doctors have chosen to remain on board, so you can leave now. But considering the robot has an ESP link to Kate, she just psychically tells him the truth. So that was a lie. That I'm pretty Reinhardt knows about the ESP link.
Does he?
I'm sure it's referenced earlier, like him, oh yeah, you've got an ESP. Oh, yeah.
Oh wait, yeah, totally. That actually does happen. You're right.
So it was like, I mean, I guess he was just, I might as well try and lie. They might fall for it. They might be very stupid. But there's, the Cygnus starts moving in position. But everyone goes to try and rescue Kate, apart from Charlie and Harry stay back.
Yeah.
So the robots have also previously found the robots killed by Vincent and Bob, which gets back to Reinhardt. So he just gives orders to just kill the crew as the ship begins moving towards the black hole. We then see Kate in the early process of being assimilated in this kind of weird machine thing. She is a baked potato. She is wrapped up like a burrito,
she's wrapped up in
tin foil, and she's got tin foil on her head. She looks like I believe how Alex Jones sleeps. It's a whole thing. But then Bob, Vincent, and Captain Dan kind of show up and shoot everything whilst the triumphant theme plays and save Kate.
I should mention before they get there is a beam fired into her head and she is screaming in pain. And part of me thought, oh my god, are they actually just not going to make it in time?
It wouldn't be out of place in this movie, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, they head back out. They shoot dozens and dozens of robots. There's like a whole set piece, like this glorious thing of them flying around. It's around this time. It's like the movie is trying to establish that Captain Dan is kind of the hero of the piece because he's kind of framed in a lot of shots like the action hero would be.
Yeah, but he's not, like, the character isn't charismatic enough.
He's just not the center of the story. It's Vincent. Vincent is our hero and protagonist.
Yes.
But they get quite close to getting back on the Palomino, but they get overwhelmed by like the amount of things, and Dan just tells Charlie, just lift off without us. But Charlie, because he's a good chap, he decides, no, I'm going to go rescue them, and goes with Harry, who instantly falls over and then claims to have broken his leg so that he can sort of scurry back to the ship.
Yeah, this is the guy that wanted to steal Reinhardt's ship.
Yeah.
Turns out to be a cowardly prick.
With that, Charlie kind of pops up behind the robots that were pinning down the rest of the crew, and shoots them all, and they're able to take them out, and they all head back to the ship. But then it turns out that Harry just stole the ship and takes off with it. But he's a shit pilot, and so he's going all over the place, and Reinhardt just orders to shoot it out the sky before it slams into them. But unfortunately for basically everyone, they shoot it, and it smashes into the Cygnus and explodes.
Oh dear, what a pity. Bye, Harry.
So Harry's dead, the Palomino's destroyed, and the Cygnus is damaged. So the crew's like, oh, okay, we're going to go steal that probe. Because you do see a little bit earlier, you see a robot coming out of it, so it's like a manned thing. It's at that point, meteorites that are pulled in by the black hole start smashing the ship.
Sorry, you said meteorites. I said red blobs from a lava lamp.
They are curiously glowing orange. Yes. It's a weird looking thing, and it just kind of comes out of nowhere. It's just it's like they went, this scene.
Before anyone said that they're actually meteorites, it's like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, they're just pelted by just baked beans. It's weird.
Baked beans. Yeah.
It's peculiar because it takes like a few minutes of this happening before someone goes, oh, these are also being pulled in by the black hole. Like, okay, because this did just seem to just come out of nowhere. Like, oh, suddenly someone hit the drama button. It was a weird one, but so the ship's getting battered. Like, we see walls getting smashed in. There's actually a really cool shot where it's composite shot where, because the center of the ship, there's a huge kind of hallway all the way down, this huge cavernous hall.
That's mentioned as well. Yeah.
And a huge meteorite land smashes down into it and rolls down it like it's Indiana Jones. And it's really.
I've got it written here as fiery bouncy ball rolling along the main corridor was great, but yeah, you said it better than I can.
It's I just have in all caps big ball shot.
Okay, good.
In my notes,
I'm glad we're on the same page.
And it doesn't really make any sense, but you see the crew running across a gantry in front of it, and it's a really quite well done superimposing shot, and it's just a nice composite shot, and it's in this big glowing ball thing. It's just a weird imagery, and that's what this movie does from this point on. Is weird shit is happening now.
Weird shit, set pieces, strangeness. Oh, listeners, those who have hung on are about to get a fucking treat later on in this.
Yeah. So they kind of take. They're still being assaulted by robots that are still trying to shoot at them. Mm-hmm. They go into the hydroponics bay we saw earlier. A hole gets ripped in the side of it, and it's open. It gets opened up to space a little bit, and so it suddenly becomes super cold, and it becomes like a blizzard in there.
Yeah, that was weird.
It's weird, a cool effect.
Yeah.
Cool effect. It's an interesting way of doing that, and the robots that they're fighting get sucked out. Bob had got damaged earlier, so Charlie and Dan kind of have to save him, and they just escape into a safer part of the ship. Mm-hmm. The meteorites continue to just beat the piss out of the ship, huge bits are being torn apart on it, but Reinhardt kind of presses on, and they push past this kind of meteor storm.
I do have to mention, actually, there is a sort of thing where it kind of sounds like Reinhardt is planning to destroy the Cygnus rather than go through the black hole to get, because of Maximilian. there's a weird thing there.
It's I mean, like I say, there's obvious that there's more than we are shown with the relationship between him and Maximilian,
is great.
which is cool. Yeah.
Also, during this sequence when things are starting to get destroyed in the control center of the ship, a swinging pillar just smashes a cyborg in the back of the head.
Just twats the damn thing. Yeah. But yeah, so there is loads of like practical effects and things going on. It's great. But they kind of push through the storm, and the ship is just way too damaged, and it starts tearing apart in the gravitational forces this close to the black hole. It's like full on this close to the black hole. It looks like it is descending into hell. Like,
yeah, I think roughly around here or just a little bit after this, we see the Cygnus with a like red black hole, in front of it, and it looks like a Chaos warship from Battlefleet Gothic at that point.
Yeah, it looks like a bad time is about to happen.
Yes,
like this bad time is getting worse. Reinhardt then orders Maximum, because like the Cygnus is too fucked to continue. Reinhardt's like, okay, Maximilian, go prepare the probe for me. But then, like, a large, like, monitor from above him just falls from the ceiling because the whole thing is falling apart and crushes Maximilian against his, like, control panel.
That was really surprising and a bit anticlimactic.
He's like, calling out, like for Maximilian to help him.
He's calling out to Maximilian and then the brain-dead cyborgs for help.
And the Maximilian just ignores him and just leaves without him, sort of establishing this kind of abusive relationship that, like, Maximilian is supposed to be his protector, but Maximilian obviously does not give a shit. He just leaves him, and obviously the rest of the crew just ignore him. Like,
yeah, because he's getting his comeuppance for what he did to the crew,
and and we effectively have the villain left here to die alone. Crushed by his own hubris. Like,
this is a Disney film, everyone.
Yeah. It's fucking, yeah. So at this point, Maximilian pops out in front of the crew, because obviously they're all heading towards the probe, and does some shooty bangs, disarms everyone, shoots Bob, like he gets like knocked to the ground.
So I should mention that Bob has started to be called by the crew Old Bob.
Old Bob.
And Old Bob gets hit. My one note is, Old Bob, no!
Yeah. Vincent, like, charges at Maximilian and, pins him,
like, wall,
away from his, like, spinny arm things, whilst the rest of the crew escapes, and then Vincent kind of leads Maximilian away through, like, a hole in the side of the ship, so what is open to the elements, and they sort of go through this kind of ragged remains of the ship, and then he kind of...
at this point, Maximilian fucking Mr. X's through the wall.
Oh yeah, he does. He just smashes through it. Really showing off exactly how unarticulated that model is.
Yeah.
It's literally, look, it's like throwing a mannequin through a store window.
Yeah.
And it pins, they get to a part where it's a dead end, and it pins Vincent to the wall, like against the wall, and he's got these little arms that come out that like start electrocuting Vincent, and he's like, his head starts literally spinning, and because there's a whole thing where I didn't really mention it, but Vincent's head can kind of like, it like is segmented, so it can kind of like go up and down and stuff, and it's sometimes
to denote like emotions and stuff like that, like the because it changes the way the eyes look when it goes up and down, and it's a nice effect, honestly.
Yeah, it's a fun little puppet.
It's cute.
But then a little hatch opens. So he's getting electrocuted.
I'm going to be quiet now and just let you fully explain this.
Okay, so a little hatch opens in the front of Vincent, and a little drill pops out, and then, mimicking the death of Alex earlier, he drills into Maximilian's chest, except this is a robot, so they can show it all. And you see it go inside him, and you hear what sounds like Maximilian screaming. Like death throes, immense pain screaming, interspersed with this guttural, mechanical, like, tearing of like his insides being torn apart. It manages to be 100% bloodless, 100% ungory, yet incredibly unsettling. It's goreless gore. There is... Yep. It is such an unsettling scene watching this robot scream as his insides are pureed.
Yeah.
And then he just floats away into the black hole, and Vincent's left there because he is the protagonist and hero. Goes off to find Bob, who's on the floor, and has a genuinely heartfelt little goodbye to him, because he's like, "Okay, we're gonna get you away," and Bob's like, "No, I've got to go. Everything's busted. I'm gone. I'm done."
Yeah, I have like a few seconds left. Everything's shutting down.
Yeah. Basically, like, you go on, you do it. Part of me goes with you and will never be obsolete.
Yeah, we're always the best, or something like that.
Yeah, because they had kind of a little jokey thing earlier about how their model of robot is like, oh yeah, we're obviously the best robots. Like, and he's like, yeah, carry on the tradition. We are the best. Like,
yeah, that's it.
And it's like, that's a genuinely like little heartfelt goodbye to that character. Like, that's nice. Like, the comic relief character gets treated with more dignity than the other person who gets horribly murdered.
Yep. Because Alex was just gone.
Yeah, he's just gone, and no one talks about him again. Bob though, he gets a death monologue, and it's like well written. It's lovely. So Vincent goes to join the crew, who all get in the probe, and
I have a question here.
Yes.
You know how they're all like climbing the scaffolding to get to the probe?
Yes.
Are they in a vacuum?
Do not ask such questions. You will not get answers that you want to hear.
I'm glad that was your answer to that as well. I'm not thinking about this. Holy shit, what the fuck?
My headcanon is that due to the technology of the ship, there is around it a pocket of air.
Yeah, okay.
Like an atmosphere. There is a bit of an atmosphere around the ship, or at least because it is venting atmosphere like crazy, there's still there's enough of it around it that you can breathe it for a little while. Sure. Don't look at the science. Okay, so speaking of the science of this movie, Alan Dean Foster wrote the novelization of this. You may know him better as a guy who recently put out a truly atrocious version of his own treatment for The Rise of Skywalker. But he was
also write the Star Wars novel that came out before Empire was a thing?
he wrote Splinter of a Mind's Eye, the very first Star Wars expanded universe novel.
Yeah.
So he wrote Splinter of a Mind's Eye, a Star Wars novel. He got so annoyed at how bad the science was in the black hole that he literally like wrote Disney like a manifesto, from what I understand.
Mate, you're the guy that decided lightsabers can also work as lockpicks. Go fuck yourself.
I mean, I wasn't going to go that far, but also yes.
Your idea for like the new trilogy was terrible.
Yeah, it's a weird hill to die on when you have. Yeah, it's a weird one, but yeah, he was like, yeah, no, the science and this is so shit. But anyway, so they get in the probe. There's some drama where Vincent has to go and save Charlie because he's the protagonist and hero. Yes. And they escape on the probe whilst the Cygnus falls further into the black hole. The probe, they discover, is on a preset course. It was programmed. It can't just be flown, so it's going into the black hole. But it's, it isn't damaged. It's like weird anti-gravity stuff that it's got that protects it is still in things. So, hey, they're going through the black hole and they'll fare better than the Cygnus will. Yeah. I think Kate says, let's pray he was a genius. Like, basically, let's hope this crazy person's technology wasn't as crazy as it sounded. Mm-hmm. So around this part, this is where the movie gets trippy.
Really?
Yeah. So you remember when I made references to 2001: A Space Odyssey?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is where I feel that it exposes that this movie was intended to be very much in that kind of vein. So, there's lots of everything spinning. There's like repetitions of dialogue from earlier in the movie.
Yeah, I have a note here of, this spinny room cam can fuck off.
Yeah, it's what that I can never remember what it's called, but it's where it's like low frame rate but high motion, and it creates that
Yeah,
weird.
I hate it.
Is that undercrank? I always forget.
Possibly.
But yeah, so that's happening. They're sort of going through that, and meanwhile you see Reinhardt floating inside the black hole.
Is that perhaps Old Man Reinhardt?
It's old man Reinhardt, who looks
Okay.
remarkably like Alan Moore.
Oh God, you're right.
Like his beard's grown out, his hair's grown long, and he's all grey, and he's just floating inside it. And then Maximilian shows up, and Maximilian doesn't have his chest wound at this point, and so we're sort of that's sort of a bit of a tell, as well as the aging thing that like this is not 100% real what you're seeing. This is
You sure about that?
well, real's the wrong word to put it. This is not like coherent like reality we're dealing with. We're dealing with trippy space bullshit now. Don't expect things to make sense. Maximilian appears to him, like aims towards him, and then there's a weird shot where Maximilian kind of like goes down like on him, and I know that sounds sexual, and I mean it to be, because it looks like they're about to fuck.
Yeah, they embrace as well, and it's weird.
And there's a bit of a reach around, it's only right. It's like weird. It's like he does that, and it's like them. It's like Maximilian sort of taking him into him, because then the next shot is you see close up on Maximilian's visor, because it's like a red visor where his quote unquote eyes are. But now inside you can see Reinhardt's eyes. He's trapped inside.
Yes.
Maximilian, and it pulls
the
out.
Camera pulls back
To reveal hell.
Yes, I'm just going to say my notes word for word here.
Okay.
No, really. Why is Rainamillion, as I put it, on a pillar over a flaming pit? Is he in hell now? Did the black hole actually lead to hell?
Yes. Hell is real. It is a real place, and
Like,
it is.
This went from like 2001: A Space Odyssey sort of rip-off to like, oh yeah, we just got Alejandro Jodorowsky in to do this bit.
Yeah, it's like it pulls out, and there's like you see, and you go, okay, well, it's like it's a metaphorical kind of hell we're seeing, and then you start seeing all of these like marching hooded figures around as well, which I initially thought were the crew, like with the mirrored masks. But then you can actually see some of them, and they have more conventional faces. So I don't know if it's supposed to be them. I think it's supposed to be them without their masks on. I think.
But it's like souls. They're in hell. Come on.
Yeah, it's damned souls basically, and it's just hell. It's brimstone hellfire.
So remember how I said, does this movie become Event Horizon? It kind of does.
Yeah. And it's like just okay. It is that thing where you go all the allusions to biblical things and at the afterlife. It's like, no, seriously, this led to hell. Like, okay, this is not subtext. This is just text.
Do you want to talk about the sudden glowing blue light?
Yes, then you see a glowing blue light, which becomes like a doorway, and then you go through that, and there's a floaty angel lady. Apparently that was cut from, I think it was the British TV version of it.
I actually didn't catch it was an angel. I just thought it was a fucking ghost. Like it. But no, that makes more sense.
I think it's supposed to be an angelic kind of figure. And into a blue portal, because obviously everything we've just seen is all red and horrifying, and we see the probe with the crew that we have grown to know pop out on the other side, and they're just like, so I guess we've gone through the black hole. Where are we? And
they're just going towards a stellar body of some sort.
Yeah, it's like a planet that's going through like an eclipse, so it all looks really kind of interesting and pretty, and they head towards that, and
then the movie just ends.
I guess the way you can take it is that it's like they've, like, I mean, this could be like heaven. Like, I guess.
Please tell me how this works. Please explain to me, because it looks like they just got through the black hole to another part of the universe, and then the movie ends, and it's like, okay.
Well, apparently, yes, it was covered a bit in the Beyond the Black Hole comic book, but yeah. But it's like, I guess it's like, because, we don't know what's on the other side. And to be honest, I actually kind of like that, because it could just be another part of the galaxy.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Better not to say too much.
It could be like a place where they are able to, like, yes, get those secrets of like the universe and find out, what's all these mysterious things. Maybe eternal life is there. Who knows? I do like that ambiguity, like, because even though like I sit there and say, oh, it's literally like Reinhardt goes to hell. Like, you can just, it is that thing, you can just take it all as metaphor. Like, that is how
that's what he was viewing his life as in the last few moments before he died.
Yes, his desire to do this, because I feel that, like, so the whole movie is like, it's basically Reinhardt trying, is like, okay, I have found heaven and I am going to go there, and I will go there at any cost because it is a science thing. This isn't a spiritual thing. This is like science. I can fucking go there and I am going to go do it.
It's a science thing that's also like tainted by his own ego, though.
Yeah. And so he's like, okay, I'm going to go do this, and because it's not about morality, he has no qualms about doing whatever it takes to get there. Yeah. But then at the end, it turns out that what he'd done led him, instead of to his heaven, it leads him to his hell. And it's like, okay, that's
I think the fact he's in hell, trapped inside Maximilian's body, is interesting.
Some fucker on, I think it's the IMDb trivia section, was like, so, fun fact, it means that Maximilian Schell, the actor at the end of the movie, is trapped inside a Maximilian Schell.
God damn it.
She's like, that's good. It's a good bit of trivia there, friend. But yeah, that's the black hole. Ambiguous at the end, weird shit happens. I was literally speaking to my dad before recording this podcast, and I mentioned that what I was doing, and I was talking to him about it, and I was like, I think this is a movie that it is a movie that I don't know if I'd call good, but it's interesting.
I would agree with that,
because it's kind of, it wasn't reviewed well at all. It was like, people did not like it.
I can see why.
It's kind of slow and ponderous at times, and it's the fact that, like, obviously I was like joking all the way through it of like Vincent being our hero and protagonist, but like the movie doesn't really have someone that it pins as a protagonist. It is like an ensemble little thing, but like it doesn't really. Like
the only person that actually does things, though, is Vincent.
Yeah, but he's like framed as this kind of comic relief kind of. I mean, Bob's really the comic relief one, but like he kind of but he takes a while to show up. So
yeah, Vincent and Bob seem to me like they were like, okay, we can make a mascot character out of this.
Yeah. And so it's weird how that. It's just, I always found it weird when I'm like, so this is like Star Wars if R2-D2 was the main character. Which I'm not against. That's it. Disney, stop being cowards and put droids on Disney Plus. But yeah, it's like an interesting sort of thing. Like, what were your thoughts about the movie?
I wouldn't say I like it, but I think it's a very interesting attempt at this sort of movie. With a lot of weird ideas, and I appreciate it for that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing,
It's very couched in the, like, okay, this is still a Disney film, so there's certain things that need to be there, but also, like, hell turns up. And so two things get disemboweled, and it's just like, what?
See, one thing, when I mentioned it to my dad, he did say it was like marketed very much like it was just any other like Disney kind of like,
that's
kids
what I would
movie.
expect though. It's like the adverts and stuff would be very much like just another Disney film. You mentioned The Hunchback of Notre Dame earlier, and it was the same thing with all the marketing for that. And it's very much not a kids movie.
So it's it's a cool movie. If you know, I assume the people listening to this are probably at least passingly interested in science fiction. Otherwise, I presume you've misclicked and it's been too awkward to like leave. I'm sorry.
Oh man, I relate to that super hard. Thank you for hanging about anyone that's just an awkward person that doesn't want to. It would feel guilty for clicking off.
Yes. I'm like, where am I even going? Anyway,
I don't fucking know.
But yeah, like I assume you've got like if you've got an
this-
interest in sci-fi and you haven't
give this
seen
a
this,
shot.
give it a watch. It's only an hour and a half long.
Yeah.
It's you know it's an interesting take, and it's got some some of the special effects are fun, and there is something very satisfying about watching an Austrian man scream Maximilian.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. What I was going to say though, the model works all pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty
And
decent.
if nothing else, you can enjoy stuff like that, and old school matte paintings, which I always love.
Yeah, apparently there was tons of them done for the movie, but barely any of them actually got used in the end, which is a bit of a
It's a
shame.
fucking shame.
Because there are some really nice matte paintings in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to know some fun little last little bits of trivia before we wrap up about this movie?
Yes, please.
So, first off, Disney has been trying to remake it. So you know how they did things like the Tron new movie.
Yeah, of course.
Around like 2010, something like that. God, the what was it? I always forget what it's called. The second Tron movie.
Legacy.
I think you're right.
Maybe.
Yeah. That's
Sorry.
that's the prettiest movie that is just so terrible. Like it is 100. It's like I do not regret watching it, not even for a second, because it is so pretty, but also it's so dumb. There's like a bit I hope this doesn't spoilers for a movie from like 2010. But the movie's called Tron, and if you're not aware, if you've not seen the first movie, Tron is the name of a character. It's the name of like a computer program. Now in Tron Legacy, basically every character is accounted for except Tron, and there is a henchman who is intentionally kept his
Unnamed.
identity is kept
Yeah.
mysterious, and they highlight that his identity is mysterious.
Yeah.
And then they treat the reveal of who it is as if that was shocking. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I've not seen Tron, the first movie, in like 20 years, and I knew it was Tron. Because the movie's called Tron Legacy, and Tron's not in it. And he's the only other named character who isn't dead.
Weird how that works.
Yeah, it was a weird one. It's like, what Like,
What are you actually doing?
and they do it. It takes them like 90% of the movie to reveal it, and you're like, I got it in the first 10. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. But, on the Black Hole remake subject, that... I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, the idea's been floated around for about a decade, because it was around the same time as the Tron thing that they were starting to think about it. There was a script for it by John Spates, who did things like Prometheus, and he's also a scriptwriter on the new Dune movie.
Okay, that's a bit more promising, because that certainly sets a tone that I think would fit better.
Well, jettison that hope, because that version got cancelled in 2016 because it was just too dark. It is still being worked on. I think the last thing that was being said about it is in like 2018. So it's basically in like early production hell. Is sort of thing. I don't want to put it in like full on development hell, because I think like it's just a thing that they've just been kind of like trying out different scripts and seeing what likes. But they basically said it's everything that's been written is just way too fucking dark. And understandable considering the base thing it's working
The base
with.
material is like, you scratch under the kind of shallow surface, there's a lot of dark subject matter in there.
Yeah, because as I said, like, that the end part, like, you can read it all as 100% literal, hell, heaven, that's what's on the other side of the black hole. Like, you can read it like straight as that. But, there's also, it can, you can read it as a more metaphorical thing as well. It's a movie where I do appreciate like having those things where there is room for interpretation, and I think it was the fact that it was aping 2001 sort of led to that, because there's a few little bits here and there that do suggest that that's what it's taking a lot of ideas from. But yeah, so maybe one day we'll see a remake of the Black Hole. It would be cool. It gets referenced from time to time. I think there's There's an episode of Freakazoid where Freakazoid refers to the Black Hole as being like Disney's Hindenburg, apparently, which is a fucking line for a kids show.
Also, Freakazoid, Jesus.
But a few other little bits and pieces. Bob and Vincent cruelly were nominated for the 1979 Stinkers Bad Movie Award for Most Annoying Non-Human Character.
They weren't annoying.
They were beaten out, so they didn't actually win it, but they got beaten out by Twiki and Dr. Theopolis from Buck Rogers in the 25th Century.
You know what? Yeah, they deserved that award.
Yeah, they are way worse. So yeah,
they're so much worse. Holy shit.
So that's the thing. And the final one is I'm going to read verbatim from I believe I got this from IMDb. Mm-hmm. So do you remember last time we talked about Harlan Ellison?
Mm-hmm.
Harlan Ellison was briefly brought on as a scientific consultant for the film. He was fired on his first day before lunch was over because he pitched an animated porno movie starring Disney characters. Roy Edward Disney was sitting at the next table, heard everything, and had Ellison fired on the spot. Ellison insists he was simply joking, but others who were there say he was talking about it sincerely.
That's our Harlan.
Harlan
what else can I say? That's just Harlan Ellison in a nutshell. He's a weird man.
Harlan Ellison just happens to people.
Yeah.
And God bless that weird little fucker. But anyway, any final thoughts on the Black Hole before we wrap up? Because this episode's gone on for a bit longer than intended. But
I'd give it a watch just for, if you're a sci-fi person, give it a watch just for the sake of the history of it.
Yeah.
And the ideas and the visuals.
Yeah, I'd 100% agree with that.
Don't go in expecting something cerebral, but still.
Yeah, if you want to watch something and feel like it's smarter than it is, then it's a good movie for that. No, I have a soft spot for it. It's nothing fantastic, but I think it's a charming and interesting little movie to watch from time to time.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So if people want to find you on the internet, Longfang, where can they find you?
Oh, God. My branding's good, at least, so I just need to remember how the links work. Twitch.tv/Longfang91, and I'm at Longfang91 on Twitter.
Where you stream the videoed games.
I do stream the videoed games on Twitch.
Yes. I am Wib, and you can find me at Snipe and Wib on YouTube, where I talk about Warhammer bullshit, and have another podcast called The Misanthropod, which is available basically anywhere where podcasts occur. Stream on Twitch. I'm on Twitter at Wib Does Tweets. I've got a side channel where I paint Warhammer, which is Wib Does Stuff. I've got a lot of eggs in my basket.
Yep, that's how that saying goes.
That's how the metaphor works.
Yep.
Also, this podcast is now available on Spotify, and I don't think it's happened yet, but it probably will have been put up on iTunes by the time that you hear this.
Fucking nice.
So if you want to hear this, in other places more conveniently, then it's on those. So yeah. Yeah, that was an episode.
That was an episode. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yes, thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.